Hello and welcome to ERPWebTutor.com, and we are back again with one more edition of the Fusion HCM Tidbits. So the objective of this session is to do some short sessions and short tutorials on something that we feel is going to help you during your project, and it's going to help anybody that are looking for solutions for Fusion on the web. Now, in this edition, what we are trying to show you is that the situation is you're a consultant and we're trying to create an element in the system. You have created a brand new legislative data group, let's say for Italy. Okay, so this is the example that we're going to take. So you created a brand new legislative data group for Italy. You're trying to create an element for that new legislative data group, and this is what you're facing. So let's first take a look at the problem before we dive into the solution. So in order to create elements, you will go to your Manage Element task. So Manage Elements. And here you're trying to create an element. Pretty routine. You will select your legislative data group, Italy, and see what happens. You don't see any value for your primary classification. And that's where you're stunned, because without this, you will not be able to proceed. And you don't have any value in here. Okay. On the other side, if you pick some of the other legislative data group, let's say the UK, you can see you have value, so you can create elements. Similarly, for the US, you have values in the primary classification, so you are able to create elements. So what is missing here that is preventing you from creating elements for Italy? So let's take a look at the solution. We're going to cancel out of here, and while you have created or added a new legislative data group, that's a fairly easy task, which we already have. And in there, we have selected the country as Italy. So there's one more task that you need to do from a payroll perspective that will allow you to create elements. So let's see what that is. So for that, we're going to get out of this screen and we're going to go back to our all tasks. And here, we're going to look for a task which is called Configure Payroll Legislation. Okay, it's probably legislations, but since I'm not sure, I'm going to put a %. Yeah, Configure Payroll Legislations. Click on Go to Task. Make sure you are allowed to work on that task. And you can see here that some of these legislations are already enabled, but guess what? You don't have Italy in there. And if you have already turned on the payroll license, even though you're not running payroll, you might be turning on the payroll for your payroll interfaces, okay? You're going to turn on the payroll offering. Now, when you do that, some of these come automatically, okay? But if you have a country that is not listed in here, you will have to install or add that legislation. And that is what we're going to do now. We're going to click on the add icon. And you can see here, there's a warning saying that if you're implementing Oracle Fusion Global Payroll, you must get approval from Oracle, which means that you need to have the license to be able to do something like this. Okay, but in this case, we're not having Oracle Payroll. We're just trying to create an element so that we can use some of the payroll interfaces. So what we're going to do is we are going to look for Italy. Okay, if you're not seeing it here, you can search. We're going to search for the legislation Italy, and we are going to add that. Okay, continue. And this process is pretty self-explanatory. So it just shows you what are the tax year start and end date. You can leave some of these defaults. If you're just doing this for your element configuration, you don't really need to do a lot of stuff. Okay, what is the default currency? By default, it gives you the actual currency that the country uses, and in most cases you'll probably not have to override. Some of the payroll relationship rule that appears when you are assigning payroll to an employee, even with or without running payroll. I'm going to accept all the default choices here, and I'm going to move on to the next screen, which is the most important screen. This is where you will see all the element classifications, okay? And if you don't need all of them, you will go ahead and check the ones that you need, okay? So let's say I'm going to use this only for standard earnings, supplemental earnings, information element that I might use. I might define some absences, any deductions that you want to define in the system, tax voluntary deduction, okay, any employer taxes. So basically you can select the ones that you want to use, or you can select all of them. Okay, so for now I'm going to select some of these and I'm going to click next. And then the payment types, again, this is purely for if you're using payroll, that's a different perspective. Otherwise, you can just use them if you're just storing the payment method for the employees, even though you're not running the payroll. Okay, you can say check and EFT. As you can see here, the display name you can change if your client wants something else. Okay, if EFT has a specific terminology for that country, you might override it here. Okay, same thing that goes with the elements as well. In the previous screen also we saw something called a display name. So if I just quickly go back, you can see here some of these you can change it to something that meets the requirement for that country or they're more familiar with. But for now, I'm going to just accept whatever the display values that comes with it. Enabled only 2 payment types. The component groups, here I'm not going to select the component groups used with your country or territory, and if needed, provide appropriate display names. Same thing if they are using component groups, then you might want to enable some of these, but if not, in my case, I'm probably going to use absences, federal, benefits, okay, and that's about it. Next. So this is the screen where it gives you all the dimensions that you want to use. Again, all of this probably not that important if you're not running payroll, because these dimensions would mean nothing since you're not running payroll. Okay, you're going to click next, and then finally the review page. Okay, it will give you all the values that you have selected, and then you can go ahead and submit. You'll say okay. And now you can see here your Italy is also showing up, and you can see here some of these predefined, so delivered and configured by Oracle. So this one, Italy, is still not, but you can still use. Implemented, it means that the configured with objects such as elements, classifications, balances, and formula. And for Italy, if you're trying to do this, you'll have to write your formula and create the balances and all of it. Okay. So by default, you will see those are enabled, and some of this pre-configured ones that shows up. Okay. So you're done with the part where you're adding this Italy legislations for your payroll elements. Now this is release 10 for the task name. Keep in mind, configure payroll legislations. Okay. If you're in release 9 for any reason, and there should not be any, but in case you are, the task name is slightly different. That will take you to the same page. The task name is called manage payroll product usage. Okay, this is a release 9 terminology, and configure payroll legislation is something in release 10. Okay, so let's go back again. So once we are done with this, so after this, whether you are release 9 or 10, the behavior is going to be the same. So now I'm going to go back and try to create an element. I'm going to say manage element. And now go to task, where we will try to create a new element. We're going to select Italy. And there you go. You have the primary classifications that will appear based on the choices that you have made when you configured the Italy legislation from a payroll perspective. So that should help you, get a clear idea about what you need to do when you are defining elements and you're not finding the primary classifications. If you like this, please share this with your friends and colleagues, and we will come up with more useful videos like this to help the community. Thanks for watching.